Hey everyone, sorry we might be like just a smidge late. We were busy talking story and we got sidetracked. But welcome. We're excited to have everyone here. Um, and it's been a week off, right? Because we're going every other week, and I missed everyone. I'm so excited to be back here, and we're happy to do the dish tonight. For those of you, and Betty, thank you for sending us a picture of your lettuce wraps. We're super cool. Last time we did the lettuce wraps, and as we think about where we are in the time of the year, it's sort of fall. It's starting to get a little, and it's raining outside. So I feel like, ooh, it's like, it's in Hawaii, it's raining. So it's like cold in my head, right? And it's time for cozy food. So I thought, it was really nice to do a nice cozy edition. So we're going to do, bless you, we're going to do Texas chili, which is a really good, cozy, like just like makes your tummy happy because it's all warming inside. But really good football, kind of like football season food, and it's good as a dish by itself. But you can like do a lot of different things with it. So we'll do some of those things toward after we get the chili get going and done. Um, the house rules are just the housekeeping things. Everyone that's been on with us, you know how to do how this thing rolls. But if it's your first time, please do not hesitate to ask questions and use the question and answer function in the Zoom app. And everyone, please, I love the questions. I love the interaction that we have. So please don't hesitate to ask. And of course, Cheryl and the team here will be asking those questions. And Cheryl is the voice of the people, so she will be asking the questions for you. And when I'm talking with Cheryl, I feel like I'm talking with everyone here that's on the class, and it's a lot of fun for me that way. So let's get this thing started. And we're doing Texas style chili, also known as Texas red, and it is a different chili than I think the regular chili that everyone has. And I guess maybe to keep this interactive, I'm curious to know if anyone knows what makes Texas chili. And I'll start cutting, and I'll wait to see if anyone wants to answer. But the beginning, what we're gonna do is get some beef going, and this is boneless short ribs, certified Angus beef. I already diced some, but I like the boneless short rib, which is technically a piece of chuck because it has great flavor. It's an affordable piece and it has great meaty flavor. And so I bought a value pack, right? And I got the thin cuts because it's going to be perfect for the dice. And I cut those two pieces to keep this thing moving. But here, I'm just showing you how I'm cutting this so you can see how I got to those other pieces.
Okay, so some of the answers: heat,
Mm-hmm.
chunks of beef rather than
Mm-hmm.
ground beef is what
Mm-hmm.
David thinks.
Mm-hmm.
Kayla says Texas chili has no beans.
Mm-hmm.
Marcia says cubes of meat versus ground beef is what makes
Mm-hmm.
it Texas chili.
Mm-hmm. Good answers, really, really good answers. I'm going to throw this in the sink here. And why don't we come over? We're going to start to sear this meat too. So I have my pan that's been preheating, and I want to make sure it's not too crazy hot. Um, all great answers. So the key thing about Texas chili is Texas chili has, you're right, it has no beans. It is typically made with diced beef, and it has no tomato product. So when you think about the chili that you grew up eating, or it might be ground beef with tomatoes and then some spice mix, and then you're adding kidney beans, and that's chili, right? Texas style. It's all about the beef, and it's about the chilies, and so that's the key thing. And when you talk about chili contests, that's kind of really where they're going at it. So we're gonna do that version here. So I'm getting this thing hot, and I thought I'm always trying to time just the right amount. How soon should I heat my pan so that it's hot? But for those of you that were in the beginning, I heated it too soon and it was like fire. So um, anyway, I'm gonna wait. It's kind of hot, but I'm gonna put one piece in here. You hear that sizzling? So we're pretty good. I'm gonna do this in like two batches because I want to make sure that, again, I don't want to overcrowd the pan, because if I overcrowd the pan, I'm not gonna get the browning. I'm gonna get all. What happens is all this goes in here. The heat drops too quickly, and then I'm steaming all the beef, and it looks gray, and it's not very fun. So I'm gonna just put a layer. I'm gonna put half of it in, okay? And I'll spread it out. Yes.
sorry, I have some ingredient questions. So
Yes, please.
if someone doesn't have the chilies that you want to use tonight and they only have chili powder, how much chili is that okay? And how much is needed?
Yeah. We're well, let's put it this way. I have a couple bottles of chili powder. This is a 2.89 ounce. I would say half is what you're gonna want to use, depending on how much chili flavor you want. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and dice some onion. I'm sure I was prepping for this. And I'm like, oh, let me check my fridge, and of course I had two onions that I had already partially cut. And you know how you lost track of them, so I'm using these for the chili. And again, I'm just gonna cut the tops off.
So if viewers are cooking along and they
Yes.
have ground beef, should they start cooking the ground beef now?
Yes, please start cooking your ground beef now. Um, I'm cooking. Oh, so what I'm gonna try to do here is because I don't want you guys to get bored. So I'm trying to like multitask, and in a kitchen, this is kind of how I work. So yes, please start browning your ground beef, and as you're browning it, then you can take it and move it on the side, and then we can keep going. I'm gonna start browning your ground beef. I'm not sure if you have your onions cut or not, but I'm gonna cut the onions now so that I can do this while my meat is browning. I'm gonna check it too, by the way. Just stay here, Ash. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Remind us again what cut of beef you're using.
So the beef I'm using is boneless short rib. It is off of the chuck typically. It's also connected to where the kalbi short ribs come off. It's a piece that comes off of there. It has really good flavor. It's worked well. It's tender, and it's usually a really affordable price. But so you can use, because we're doing this and it's gonna cook for 2 hours. You can use almost any cut of beef, and you're looking for something that is affordable. So you can use a chuck roast or chuck. I wouldn't. Now you could use ribeye, but it's expensive, right? And I would rather make a steak with that. Um, but any of the affordable cuts will work well, and because this is going to really cook slowly to tenderize any what would be considered a tough cut of meat. So I'm taking my onion here, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut it into like small dice. When you're cooking, you want to be listening. And my thing got really quiet, so I want to see what's going on here. Okay, take a look here. So what you're seeing here is some of that what I was talking about. So the liquid is starting to come out here, and I want it to brown. So I want you to understand, if the liquid starts to come out like this on you, what you want to do is let it cook the liquid so that it comes out. And once the liquid evaporates out from the cooking process, then it'll start to brown. So we're gonna let it keep cooking. You see all this steam? Once it's all the liquid's gone, the steam goes away, and then it'll start to brown, and then we'll get the good caramelization that we're looking for. Okay, so I have my onions here. I'm gonna do another one. So I'm just checking. We have the chili powder question answered, and the beef and the ground beef question answered, correct?
Yes, and we also have a question about the cornmeal.
Yes.
Can someone use oatmeal instead of cornmeal, or what is a good substitute?
Good question. Okay, so the masa harina that you're putting in there, when you're talking about authenticity, right? So the masa harina is made by taking corn, and then it's soaked in a lye, and it swells, and then it's dried, and it's pureed and made into flour, and that is what is used to make tortillas and things like that. Okay, and can you hear the difference? Can you hear this thing getting louder? It's because the moisture is gone now, and it's telling me that it wants my attention. So we're gonna go over here, and we're gonna stir.
Did you salt and pepper the meat?
I did not salt and pepper the meat. You can if you want, but I'm putting salt and pepper in the puree, which will work. Okay. Um, so anyway, so traditionally that's what you would use. Now it is used to thicken this chili. So there are other options you can do. You could take literally tortilla chips and smash them up and throw them in. You could take, if you had a corn tortilla, chop it up pieces and throw it in there. Oatmeal will work because it will swell. But what I would be looking for is a corn substitute because that corn has some sweetness, and I'm trying to stay with the character of the dish. You could technically put flour, you could put rice, anything starchy that's going to absorb the liquid and then break down and thicken your chili will work. Okay. Oh, crackers work too. I've done that before when I needed to. So I keep moving this around, and you see I'm holding the pot, and I put my spoon in, and I have it touching the pan. So I'm moving it around, and by doing this, I'm also scraping the pan at the same time. You see I'm getting a nice browning. I'm gonna take this out. We'll put this in a bowl here, separate. Put a little bit of oil back in the pan, just a little bit. Let it heat up, because we're gonna do the second half, okay? Now, I wanna put this in now. Okay, so while this is going, we're gonna move on to the chili paste. Now remember, when I cook at home too, I'll do two things at the same time. Don't feel like you have to do this. I'm also doing this because I'm trying to have things to do constantly when we're talking. But when you're doing this at home, you might want to go ahead and make your chili paste first, brown your meat first, cut your onions. You know, you don't have to do it in the same layered way that I do it. But if you do, and you get good at it, you can get dinner on the table quicker. Okay, so I want to talk about the chilies real quick.
Wait, quick question. What kind of oil did you put into the
I use different oils. Right now, that's peanut oil. So it's just as long as it's neutral oil. So it could be vegetable oil, peanut oil, avocado oil, something that does not have flavor, that has really high smoking, that has a good, can take high temperature. Okay. So these are the chilies that I'm using here. These are California chilies or New Mexico chilies. And you can use the different chilies you want if you want to really go all in. And the chilies you're going to use, the flavors vary, the heat index varies. I'm looking for chili flavor without really, really hot. So I'm using these. Now, these are the ones that I was able to get, and they're a little bit, when they're really, really fresh, they're leathery, they're pliable. These are a little bit on the older side. So I'm gonna puree them so I can show you what it looks like, but I'm also gonna add chili powder to punch it up a little bit. But what I did was I took the chili, and this varies a little bit from the instructions, but I just took off the top, I opened it, I poured out all the seeds from the inside, and then I put it in really hot water to soak up to get really, really tender. So that's kind of what we did here. And now we're gonna go and puree to make a puree. So it's kind of like, instead of dried chili powder, we're making a fresh chili paste. And if you see different dried chilies, just make sure you check the variety to make sure you understand how hot it is. What's the Scoville heat index going to be? Because we're looking for a nice chili flavor. I'm not necessarily looking for like super screaming hot. Okay, so we're gonna go puree. But you can hear that, right? I'm gonna put it under here so I can catch all of the fan. But you see that browning happening, right? Okay. Okay, it's gonna get a little noisy, but I want to show you what we're gonna do here. So I have my chilies that have been soaking for 45 minutes, and they're nice and soft and pliable. I'm gonna put them in a blender, and it's not in instructions, but when I was testing the recipe, I realized you want to put some liquid in here because that liquid is going to help to break it all down. Okay, it's going to get loud, so I'm and one thing that people do is they rush this, and that's why they're some people strain this out, but I'm going to puree this so it's super smooth, so it doesn't need to be strained. So here, take a look inside here. So you can see that beautiful chili paste right there. Okay, I want to hold it there for a second. We're gonna come back over here.
How would you do this if you don't have a blender or a food processor? Do you just stir it, or do you use chili powder?
If you don't have a blender, I would say go with the chili powder. That's the best way to go about it. And I mean, technically, right? I wanted to show everyone like how it's traditionally done. But even for me, like I'm not. If I come home at like 6 o'clock and I want to get this, well, I can't do that because it takes 2 hours. But in the weekend, maybe if I was gonna do this, right? I would probably use this because it's more readily available. And the other thing is, if you can't, like even for these, like still these are a little bit on the, they're a little bit on the, they're a little old. They weren't as fresh as I wanted. You want to have fresh, and this is probably sells much faster than the chili, the whole chilies. So I would, this might be a better option because, like I said, you're not going to be, it's not going to dry out, and the flavors and the essential oils aren't going to be dissipating. So you probably have a nicer experience by doing that. Okay, so our onions are going to go in now.
And you soaked the chilies in hot water or cold water? And what was the purpose again?
Yeah, so it was hot water, and the reason I did that is because I wanted chilies to get soaked and get pliable. It's kind of like what you're doing when you do shiitake mushrooms. All the dry stuff, right? You want to rehydrate them, and you want to swell up again what they were like before they were dried out, and that's the reason why we did it. And hot water has the ability to soften and absorb quicker than cold water. So with hot water, and it's been a while, right? So that's why I can put my hand in here because it's been sitting for a little bit. It's cooled off. Okay, we're gonna do some garlic. I got 4 cloves here. Just gonna smash them real quick. Or rough chop it. So those of you that are cooking along, the people that are browning their ground beef, how you guys doing?
They must be busy browning.
Yeah, I figured that. Yeah, you keep browning your beef, all right? You just do your thing.
Does it matter what type of pot you use? Aluminum, steel, cast iron?
The material of the pot is not necessarily as important as the gauge, right? So, whoops. So let me show you this. So this, I like to use, and what's important is, like even this is a cast enamelware pot, and it's very heavy. And this pot is a thick layer of metal on the bottom. And what I'm looking for is a pot. It's dry. It's dry, so I'm adding a little more fat because I want to loosen it up. Um, you want a pot that's got good thickness because you want it. It's gonna help with the heat retention, and it's gonna give you more even cooking. Okay. Okay. So I added my garlic. I got my onions in here. I'm browning this up nicely. Okay. Now what I'm gonna do here is the recipe says put cumin on the paste, but I'm gonna put the cumin straight into the onion so that I can start to get the oils and the flavors to come out. Salt. Remember, you were asking if I season the beef. I'm putting it in here now. Salt, pepper.
Keoni, our friend Nancy Enos is joining us tonight.
Nancy.
She wants to know if you can use fresh chilies in this recipe too.
What kind of fresh chilies, Nancy? I'm gonna put. This is beef stock, by the way. Okay, I'm putting that in. You can add chili, fresh chilies. Yeah, it's just gonna it'll add character and flavor, but you want to use the dried chilies because it's kind of like when you think about fresh shiitake mushrooms versus dry shiitake mushrooms, right? There's a character, there's a almost like a sun-dried, like even sun-dried tomatoes versus fresh tomatoes, right? There's a complexity that comes by that. So you can add fresh chilies for sure, but you gotta add the dried chilies or chili powder to make this thing a really good chili. Okay. Now I added stock. I added the cumin, salt, pepper, and I added the onions. I'm gonna add I don't have masa harina, but I'm using polenta, which is corn based, because that's what I had. So I'm just sprinkling it on the top. I'm gonna stir that in. I'm also scraping the bottom of the pan because all of that fond, they call it fond, which is the caramelization from the meat and the onion that sticks in the bottom. I want to get that off into this liquid here. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and add the beef.
Nancy says jalapeno peppers.
And it's just gonna add. You're adding layers of flavor and complexity.
Did you make your own beef stock?
I did not. I have to confess. I used it's called Better Bouillon. I think it's in our stores. It's on the same shelf as we have the beef stocks and broth. It's really good. It's a beef base, and it's using actual beef concentrate. So I just rehydrated. I mixed that with water to get the beef stock or my beef base that I'm putting in there. Okay, so this is coming up to its nice simmer. I'm gonna turn it down because I want it to simmer. I want it to simmer nice and slowly. So I'm turning it down, but I'm also gonna now add the my puree into this. So we're gonna go ahead and put that in. You could also you could add the chipotles, which are smoked jalapenos. You could add a myriad of different peppers, but now that's when you're starting to play with the different heat index and different layers of pepper flavor, and that's where it gets fun, right? And that's where those chili cook-offs that happen. You know, people are trying to they're coming up with their own special blend of peppers or their own philosophy on how to make a great Texas chili. But again, it's usually diced meat, and again, no tomatoes and no beans. Okay, so now I am going to add some chili powder because of the testing that I did on this particular pepper the peppers that I showed you, right? I felt like it didn't have quite the flavor because they weren't quite as fresh. So I'm going to add some chili powder here. We'll stir that in. Now, one thing I want you to notice, right? You guys are probably looking at this and being, wow, it looks really like loose, really watery. And that's correct. But what's going to happen is that corn polenta that I put in there will gradually, as it simmers, will start to thicken and over time, we're gonna cook this thing for 1.5 to 2 hours. And gradually what's gonna happen is it's gonna reduce and the flavors will concentrate. And as the flavors concentrate, it's gonna thicken. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to reduce this down to a level where it's nice and thick, but there's also liquid. So the liquid should be at the layer of the beef layer of with the beef when it reduces down. There should be equal ratios, and that's when you know you're good. Okay, so I'm gonna put a lid on this. I'm gonna crack it just lightly, and I'm gonna turn it down to low. And you want to just let it do its thing. You want it to go low and slow. And what I mean is this is, if you're seeing this is too fast. Okay, what you're looking for is like a little lazy bubble every so often. And what that is going to do is it's going to keep the heat right. It's going to slowly reduce. And that long cooking, slow heat is what is going to really tenderize the product and make it just really yummy and delicious.
Another substitute question. Can you use Hawaiian chili pepper? And how much would you use?
Yeah, so you can use Hawaiian chili peppers as a part of it, but same thing. So the Hawaiian chili peppers are also known as like bird peppers. They're hot. So the amount, like I use 8 of those California chilies, and they're big peppers, right? If you were to use the same amount, it would be screaming hot. Imagine chili pepper water, right? So I mean, if you like it that hot, that's great. But that's the thing about a chili like this and those kinds of chilies. People think chilies are just hot, 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 and the kinds of chilies that are suggested in the recipe, they have chili flavor, but they're not like gonna like burn your mouth up. So you can use some of the Hawaiian chilies, but I would use them more as to make it spicy versus to add chili flavors. Okay.
And do you need to stir the pot occasionally or just leave it alone?
Yeah, you should stir it occasionally because what will happen is as it starts to reduce and thicken, the chilies and all the solids will start to settle on the bottom. And if you don't come back and stir it every so often, they might stick and you might burn. So absolutely, it's not one of those set it forget it. It's low and slow, but not set forget. Okay. All right. So the chili is working, and I got to figure out what we can talk about for 2 hours. So just kidding. What I thought I would do is I I want to show you. I have something that's going to be fun to show you shortly, but I wanted to start talking about the different things you can do. So I'll show you the traditional presentation that chili, but I also wanted to show because at the end of the day, hey, I'm showing you an authentic chili, but it is football season, like I said, and one of the things that we all love is nachos, right? So I'm gonna do a quick my own version of like nachos using Texas chili, and we're using our Maika'i organic tortilla chips, but I'm gonna do a thin layer first of chips. And then I have some. This is a Mexican. It's cheddar cheese and Monterey Jack mixed together. But the key is you kind of want cheese with every chip a little bit, right? So I make a thin layer, put some cheese, another layer, put some more cheese. That way you can kind of like get some cheese in every bite, right? And then I'm gonna throw this in the oven. Now, you can cheat this if you like somehow everyone just is going crazy on these and like you got to get someone on the table. You can zap it in the microwave real quick. It'll quickly melt the cheese. I'm gonna throw these in the oven though, okay? 350.
What kind of plate is that?
You know, these are cool plates. That one I think said Eli's on there, but you know, one of our coworkers, Susie, her parents used to collect old school plates from like diners and restaurants, and so she gave them to me, and that's one of those plates. Pretty cool, right?
Is it stoneware?
What does stoneware mean? I'm not sure what that means.
Yes, it is. It is stoneware.
Is it?
Yes.
I know it's old school. Okay, so
when do you put the brown sugar and vinegar into the chili? In already?
I have a great question. Come, I'll show you. So I had to learn how to do this whole TV thing or whatever you call it. So this is the beginning of 2 hours, right? This is after 2 hours. So as you can see, like I talked about, right? The pieces of meat are nice and tender, but you see how it's thickened? See the difference between the two? Really loose. And see, that's how much I care about you guys. I made this thing twice. But here, look at it. So you see the consistency of the broth, and it's nice and shiny, and the layer, how it's right at the layer of the beef layer, right? The beef is at the bottom. This is how high it is, and that's what it looks like. That's now the part where, and it says distilled vinegar, but use whatever vinegar you got. So I have some Bragg's apple cider vinegar. Put a little splash in there. And then I got my sugar. This is dark brown. I had golden brown. I'm gonna use what I got. See, that's the thing. Use what you got. Some sugar and put it in there. We'll stir that in. And this is what you see now.
So can you use white sugar?
You can if that's what you got. The thing about the brown and the dark brown is it has the all the stuff that comes out that makes molasses and all that. It has more flavor. It has more toasty caramel flavor. You can use white sugar, and white sugar is going to be just sweet. So if you have, I think you should use brown. I happen to have light brown versus dark, but brown sugar is going to give you more complexity and flavor. You could use agave. You can use different things, but for sweetness. And the sweetness, you don't want it to be like cloyingly sweet. It's just when you think about your taste buds taste sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami. Everything else that you sense in what we call taste is in your nose. So I'm adding the sugar and the acid for the sweet and the sour, okay? So this is what this looks like. I think it looks really, really nice and delicious, okay? We're gonna see this, it's still too fast. So what I wanna show you is, I have this on low. If my low is too high still, I'm gonna move it off of the stove, off of the heat, and just a piece of it, it's just part of it will be on the stove, which will slow down my cooking process because I don't want it to go too quick. It'll tear up the beef. See how my beef pieces stayed whole? If I go too fast, they'll shred and it'll reduce too quickly before the beef is tender. So that's what this looks like. And we'll do here, I'm gonna bring this in the front here and we'll do a couple different things. So we have our nachos that are starting to, the cheese is nicely melting. I want to show you the traditional preparation of this dish here. So it's very simple preparation typically. Okay. It's a nice bowl. And then you put some sour cream. The sour cream, what you do is when you're eating and you stir it in, it kind of smooths the dish out and makes it really, really nice. And it's like adding butter to your toast a little bit. It's like adding cream to your coffee. And then I will add a lime wedge for people so that the person that's eating it can take a little piece of that, squeeze it in there. Now, if you want to start to add layers of complexity, you add a little bit of cilantro. But that's what you can serve as your straight up classic Texas chili, which I think looks really good. Then I'm going to show you, we took our we got our nachos going, right? So, maybe that's a nice dinner. You have a get together, a nice beer. Then you have all your friends over and we're like, okay, we're gonna kick this bad boy up. So these were the nachos, right? That we put the cheese on, and see how it's like inside there, you got cheese everywhere, right? Then you take some of your Texas chili. Instead of the regular chili you have, we'll put some of that on there. That's looking good, right? You see that?
If you're ready to plate and your chili is not as thick as you would like it to be, can
Mhm.
you add more of the masa harina or the cornmeal or the polenta to thicken it up, or how would you thicken it up?
Yeah, so when you're at
Moderate.
that point, by adding, if you add more of the masa harina or any of the polenta, it's not going to work because it takes time to thicken. So when you're looking at those kinds of things that you need immediate thickening, I would take um, some chips and smash them up and throw them inside, or take a cracker and smash it up because it'll immediately absorb and thicken. You can even take a piece of bread if you had to, like breadcrumbs, throw it in, because you don't want to put something in that takes time to cook down. That's how you're gonna. That's how you can cheat the system to kind of like get something to get the body in you want to make it happen. I got a little bit of some of our my cutty salsa that I'm gonna throw in here. Gotta have sour cream, right? And then we have some fresh guac from our central kitchen, makes really good stuff. Nice dollop of that here. And then you have a myriad of, you can put them on the side if you want. We got some chili lime sauce, or this one's really good. I love this. This is Tabasco, Chipotle Tabasco. So, if you're gonna, if you want to start adding layers of flavor too into the chili, like you want to start making this is a good foundation. You want to start going in different directions, put a little bit of that in there. That'll like kick it up. Put a little bit on top here like this. Um, and then here's a version like that. The last one that I wanted to show you folks, I gotta get a bowl real quick, is what is also known as Frito pie, and I guess you could call it. You could say it's an offshoot of what we see as nachos these days. And let me put a bit more on top of here. But a lot, and what they'll do is, this is a full bag, but they'll get the small bags, they'll cut a hole in it, pour chili and stuff on top of it, which is really good. So I'm gonna pretend that's my bag. Again, you probably say this is similar to nachos, but come on, guys, these are Fritos. Okay, Fritos, and you take your chili, put it on top of there. Usually it gets diced onions. I don't have any diced onions, so we're just gonna put some green onions on top. Yeah.
Viewers want to know what brand of ladle and where can we get it.
Sure. Now, tip, it's supposed to have Monterey Jack, but it technically is getting Monterey, but I have it mixed with the cheddar. I just didn't, instead of buying two cheeses, I have one. I'm not avoiding everyone. I'm just trying to finish this one here. But so this is kind of like your Frito pie. Usually it gets diced onions on top. But that's another version that you can do. So you have, we've got the traditional Texas chili. We've got nachos made from this, and we've got sort of Frito pie. And so there's a lot of different ways you can have fun with this, and you can like impress your friends. The question about this ladle here, I'll tell you, you guys can see right here. You see that? So this is Williams Sonoma. That was, so the ladle question. What else was the other question, Cheryl? Where did you get it? Yeah, so this is Williams Sonoma, from Williams Sonoma. And I'm surprised how I thought it came back together. It came together really quickly. So we have our chili, again, Texas chili, and what makes it Texas chili is about the chilies and the beef, and it doesn't have tomatoes, it doesn't have beans. The other thing is, as I think about this, if you wanted to start to explore making your own renditions of it, besides the chili options you can put in here, what would be cool is you take some bitter chocolate and throw it and stir it in, and that'll be almost like a mole thing. You could take cilantro and throw it in there. So there's a lot of different ways you can go at this. People use beer and stuff like that too, but that's where you start getting into the creativity for the contests that are happening. But we took our Texas chili, and we did Frito pie, which is a classic thing, and then we just made a really killer, like this is like blowing your mind nachos. And that's what we got. Are there any last minute questions?
Yes. What happens if you taste your chili and it's
Mhm.
too spicy, too hot? How do you reduce the heat?
Okay, if your chili is too hot, there's a couple things you can do. Is one thing you can do is take that chili and then brown a whole bunch of more ground beef or other items and then add it to it. So you're trying to adjust the balance of heat to that. The other thing you can do is you can add some more vinegar and sugar that can help balance it. I'm not sure how hot it is that you're talking about, how, that heat. Um, and the other thing is you can use, you have to use a little at a time, but if it's really, really, really hot, the only thing that you can do really is to add way more of the main items to it. And I was, and that's a great, just the other day I was making enchiladas and um, I wasn't paying attention and the sauce was really hot. And I have a ton of it in the fridge because all I could do was take that batch and add it to more tomato product to like try to cut it down to make it more, less hot. And the other thing you could do is like the chocolate, if you put chocolate in it, that fat's going to help to calm some of the heat. Things like sour cream calm the heat. And those are some of the techniques you can do to try to manage that. But that's kind of the way you would want to approach that. If there aren't any other questions,
When is the next show?
yeah. So our next show is going to be the week after next week. So I'm trying to think of the dates. Do we have the actual date? It'll be like the first week of November, right? So that's the 4th. It'll be the day after election day. So it'll be fun. We'll see what happens. But that class we're start to focus on holiday stuff. So I'm thinking about what it's gonna be a holiday side. It might be cranberry sauce. I'm thinking about wanting to show you guys how to do like a really cool like my great grandmother's stuffing recipe, which I think is delicious. So we're thinking about what it's gonna be, but it'll definitely be you know themed for the time of the year, and it'll probably be themed for Thanksgiving specifically. So we hope you had fun.
Oh,
And
one last question.
yes,
Sorry.
yes,
The mole sounds delicious. Adding the chocolate sounds like a great idea.
yes.
What kind of chocolate? Dark chocolate, milk chocolate, and how much chocolate would you add?
This kind. I'll show you. I'm gonna open this just for you because you asked the question. Um, well, technically there's Mexican chocolate that we want to use, which is it's sort of dark and it has sugar in it, but it doesn't have like it's not like milk chocolate, right? But again, you can experiment with the different chocolates you want to use because it'll give different flavors. But in this instance, I'm using extra dark because I want that. This is 83% cocoa, and so I want that cocoa flavor that's going to give you that kind of smokiness and without sweet milk chocolate. So you don't want to put like really sweet chocolate, I think, inside your chili. But I'll put some of these in and pretend like it's butter. So I'll put it in here and I just keep stirring it. And if it was on the stove, what'll happen is it'll gradually emulsify in here, just like a piece like butter would. And it's gonna give you really cool complexity and flavor. And it's gonna help to kind of like smooth that out and give you mouthfeel because of the richness and the fat that's in the cocoa that's in the chocolate chip. All right, so we'll see you in 2 weeks. We'll be working on holiday stuff. It'll be super fun. And send us pictures of your nachos. We'll see you next time.